This video might be a little bit longer than usual format because I'd like to cover a whole bunch of fun things in this, and so let me outline what I'm thinking. The first thing is I want to introduce you all to a plant that we've been working with now. This is our second year. It's a Kaleidoscope, Homesteader's Kaleidoscope Perennial Kale, and I want to explain the arc of our experience with this plant. It's really promising, pretty exciting, and introduce you to that and how we've been working with selecting it for our site and to prove that it is actually perennial. Then I also want to introduce you to some cool work that folks are doing in the realm of this plant breeding and developing novel types of plants, some names that are maybe compelling for you to check out online and learn more about, and also, most importantly, in some ways, to demystify our process for how we save seeds and do plant breeding. In other words, show you behind the veil that it really is not a big deal. We have no training in this. It's super loose, and in some ways it actually selects for more hardiness. So let me get into it. First things first, this is the plant that's inspiring this video, and what I will do is in the description I'm going to link to where you can order seed for this. I'm not affiliated with this folks or sponsored or any of that kind of stuff. I bought the seed. I'm happy to buy more of it. I don't want sponsorship from them. I just want folks to know about them. And this is from a project called the Experimental Farm Network. It is Kaleidoscope Homesteader's Kale, and it was bred most recently by a fellow named Chris Homanics. And so I'm going to link his name in there too. You can find out more about the work he does. He's in the Pacific Northwest. And the idea behind this is, how do we get a kale that will overwinter and persist year after year in a cooler climate? Their breeding work brought this kale to be fully perennial in zone 6 and warmer. And so I got seed for this last year, started it in the spring and transplanted them out. We are zone 5B, and the site where Sasha and I live, we're at 1,200 foot elevation on a north slope, very wet site, so it's pretty challenging. And so I thought, okay, heck, I'll buy some seeds, we'll start growing them, see what they do. And put them in last spring, so this is April or so of 2019, and they grew nicely during the summer. They looked like any other kale. There's some other kale that is a more annual or biennial kale. And last fall, we did nothing to protect them. No row cover, no season extension, and left them in the garden. And so last winter, which was pretty darn cold and snowy, a good average, well, a little bit warmer than average, but still cold and challenging, they were fully exposed to that. And here are some of the kales that remain. The rest of this block died, but these did just fine. And there were some other ones around them, and we transplanted them this spring to a couple new spots. We put some over here, put some over there, put some in the greenhouse just to see how they would transplant. They all did fine with that. And they've been reliably growing even after a good number of frosts, which again is not something that's so amazing as an attribute of kale. But to have been planted last spring, grow all summer, go through fall and all winter, and then come up this spring, not from the ground, but from the base of their stalks, or some of them from the main height of their stalks, and grow all this fall. It's pretty promising. We're going to leave them again this fall. We're going to do no protection for them, and next spring see if they're still here. And if they are, they're perennial. We get to work with them. Now, one way I could have introduced that topic to you, or that concept, is to say, we've been doing some breeding work, selecting for a fully perennialized kale based on the research of Chris Homanics and blah, blah, blah. But the reality is, we got seed for something that was maybe going to be perennial. We planted it in the garden, we weeded, we ate some, we kind of forgot about it. Some died, some lived, and what lived, we still kind of forgot about. We eat from it, and we're gonna let them either live or die. Whoever's here next spring is perennial. That's the reality of it. I can wrap it in fancy words. Where I think things get really exciting is when there's an interplay between folks like us that really love a diverse reality of plants in the garden. Perennials, annuals, flowers, foods, medicines, soil builders, everybody together. We love that stuff. But we don't have an inclination to take notes. We don't have, journals and maps of what we've done. We kind of remember what we did. We'll put some tags here or there. You can see one laying on the ground that got spit out by the frost. So we have our own internal maps, but very, very informally. That sort of lifestyle and gardening style intersecting with folks like the Chris Homanics of the world and all these other wonderful plant breeders from all sorts of different races and ethnicities and backgrounds that are really doing the tracking work. That combination begets plants that can really become the people's plants. The work that it takes to get to here, to a place where we can be fumbling around in a loose way to have a plant that's very promisingly moving towards being perennial for us, that is on the backs and minds of a whole lot of generations. And many folks that are from very different races and backgrounds than I am. Many women farmers involved in all this, thousands of years of breeding work from Asia Minor forward in order for this kale to get here. And it's important to remember that. I can throw around certain names and that's a place to begin, but it goes so much further back than that. Another reason why I'm so psyched to share specifically this perennial kale, but also the Experimental Farm Network as an organization, is that they work very hard to promote the concept of open source seeds, which basically means that the work that people are doing to select and to breed and to generate new novel varieties of plants that are more adaptable to climate change and hardy for all sorts of management conditions, there's zero interest in then getting to a place where they can patent that and own it. So it remains in public domain. Whatever breeding work or selection work you want to do, that's great. Have it adapt to your site, but you don't get to actually own it as a fundamental concept. And just for fun, so we could learn a little bit more about this plant without fussing over it, we took one of the seedlings and transplanted it into here in the spring last year. So this is a 2-year-old perennial kale, and in our greenhouse, well, it's had no access to cabbage moths or any of that. It's just beautiful, and it's starting to get a stalk at the bottom. It has not flowered or wanted to make seed, which may or may not be beneficial. I'm interested in having some that want to make lots of seeds so we can get many plants, and some that just grow into small shrubs and trees. And from some of the other plants, I took some lateral cuttings. I've watched a number of videos, which I'll link to in the description below, where people take root or shoot cuttings and stick them in garden soil and they rooted for them. And so we did that trial, similar style to a lot of the other things we do. These are just stems stuck into the garden in our greenhouse in here. And I would say about 50% rooted. You can see the one over by that crazy tromboncino squash, pretty wilted. But we haven't watered them much. We haven't cared for them. No rooting hormone, no bottom heat, just stem sections stuck in the garden, watered once or twice. If you've ever thought to yourself that the idea of saving seed or selecting plants for your site or even getting into doing some breeding work the idea feels really exciting to you, but you don't feel like, oh, I don't have the education for that. I don't know where to begin. I'm not organized enough. But you could look at our example and feel like, okay, I could probably do it as well as he's described, or probably way better, and it still works out. So word of encouragement, let plants bolt and flower, set seed, save some of the seed, be deliberate a bit, take some notes if you want, save the seed in containers or scattered around the garden and see what happens. Each year that you let that happen, you learn more and more wildness begins to happen. Maybe eventually you have something to say from it. I guess it remains to be seen if I actually had anything to say from it myself, but that's perennial kale for you. In the process of being tested in Zone 5B to be actually perennial in the spring. Whoever remains, if they all remain, then we'll know we've got a good diverse parentage to pull from, and maybe eventually it's offered through the nursery. But what I would actually prefer is that everyone goes to the Experimental Farm Network, supports their work and orders seed and grows it out like crazy and shares seed or sells plants, not owns the concept of the plant. But I don't think there's anything ethically wrong with selling seeds or seedlings or plants. You're being compensated for the work to generate more plant material, but you're not owning the idea or the concept of the being itself. So these plants, pretty rad. Lots of little shoots that we can experiment with taking cuttings from in the spring, see how those propagate, learn as we go, look for more and more diverse leaf form each season, See how they handle winters? Can they handle -15, -20 Fahrenheit? All remains to be seen, but boy oh boy, working with lots of different plants each year, being very loose in the execution so that we can learn how well they can adapt to being in wild contexts. It's very rewarding, and it begets a whole lot of plants. Thanks for watching.